Hello, how's it going, Sock Nation? Today we're going to be tackling possibly the worst thing in Warhammer. Not least because it's racist, but because it's both racist and wasted potential. Going straight into it, if you don't know what the Pygmies are in Warhammer, which is fair since it's a pretty obscure lore tidbit, they're a race that came into the setting in 1984. The date doesn't really matter, but what does matter is their lore. The Pygmies dropped with a handful of illustrations and far more stuff on their culture than Ind or even Nippon had at the time, if they were even around then. I'd argue that the Pygmies have more lore still, despite them basically being sent to the void in terms of their canon status. They are depicted as pretty much the stereotypical early colonial race science depiction of Africans, but shorter. And when I say racist, I mean very, very racist. I just really want to emphasize the word racist here. And it isn't even that funny, it's not the funny kind of racism, which makes it arguably way worse. Before I can give the ruling, though, on if they can be fixed, I'll talk a little about their described culture, like a little mini lore video. The Pygmies are really big into ritual mutilation and body paint. They cover themselves in dye and stab bones into themselves. They also worshipped, past tense, 13 short gods, who joined together in peace and harmony to create the entire universe. Two of which, Brobat and Beesbach, turned out to be unnaturally huge assholes. One due to his gluttony and the other due to, just sort of being an asshole. He really didn't have a reason, he was just kind of a dickhead. Together, they killed their fellow gods and, realizing that gods are probably delicious, indulged in a taste test and both confirmed that gods are in fact delicious as their suspicions implied. And they didn't even have the courtesy to finish the bodies at the crime scene. They still eat the bodies to the modern day of Warhammer, which is pretty effed up if you consider that they had to stuff it in the fridge and shit. Getting down to their personalities, we'll start with the asshole first, Brobat, being a self-interested, self-indulged schemer. Brobat is over 6 foot and carries a large stick around at all times for hitting people with. Beesbach, on the other hand, is considered to be the more happy and benevolent of the two. While he is a god-tier cannibal, he is a pretty jovial guy, enjoying pretty much anything pleasurable at all times. He's usually depicted as wearing a loincloth, however most priests of Beesbach consider the canonical appearance to be him just being naked. I won't bother to cover anything about witch doctors, but what's important to know is they have a really interesting dichotomy. And it's surprisingly fleshed out too. They pretend the other doesn't exist in an attempt to own the other, and both handle the same problems, just in radically different ways. It actually feels like a very natural and a useful system to have when reading about it, and it's described that Pygmies usually try to implement both ways of doing things, to get the most out of it, Okay, that's all I have to say about them as a culture. You have Google if you want to do your own research, there are links in the description. So, the big question, can we fix this fucking disaster?
Yes, you can!
Many of you may be shocked, surprised, baffled even, and don't be. I'm the smartest man alive, and I will soothe all of your concerns. This Reddit post by a deleted user sums up many of the problems very well, particularly that the Pygmies feel like a mean-spirited joke. However, he seems to lean towards the side of either casting the Pygmies away into the bowels of history, or changing them entirely into normal humans, which GW seemed to be playing with but eventually decided against. I, however, have a better idea. Keeping the Pygmies as African halflings is fine. I feel like it's just another stereotype that Warhammer can play into. However, this has got to fucking go. While some humans do actually have skulls shaped like this, cartoonishly large lips, and it can't stand. It cannot stand. And also, on the flip side, making their faces just normal halfling is basically just them doing blackface, which would be just as racist, and probably more so in my opinion. So, making their heads look more like normal African people instead of this abomination, would probably be the best route. However, one thing that we cannot get rid of no matter what the design, if you go with the normal heads, the blackface, or even the current design, which is shit, the one thing that can never be disposed of is the pointy ears. Elf alert. I don't know why, but I really love the pointy ears. They're my absolute favorite part of the design. I just love anyway, what was I talking about? The masks, right. What's the point of the mask? Well, the masks, even though they're supposed to be a tribal voodoo aesthetic, from an optics point of view, I don't think the lips should be exaggerated even in these. It just wouldn't pan out well. There's not really any problem with the banners, they're just fucking badass. Just look at these banners. Look at how fucking cool they are. Oh my god, they're so badass. What I also think should be done is to cut the Pygmies into two groups. The tribals, which are functionally the halfling sub-Saharan African tribes depicted originally, and also the civilized Pygmies, which would basically just be short Ghanans. I would imagine them to be also split into their own monotheistic groups, which exclusively worship either Beesbok or Brobat. Sort of like the tribal pygmies in their villages, an interesting dichotomy with Beesbok and Brobat would be to have Beesbok kingdoms being wealthier and Brobat kingdoms being more militarily powerful. Like imagine Mansa Musa, but he's short and a pygmy and he's got pointy ears. That'd be so fucking cool. But on the military, this is probably the most important part of the redesign. The pygmies cannot be weak. Whereas the halflings of the moot may cry and piss their pants when they don't get brabbed, the pygmies of the Southlands need to be able to go toe-to-toe with the lizardmen around them. With tribal pygmies being able to fight them in the jungle, and the more agrarian, sedentile pygmies being able to fight them in the fields in open battle. The martial might is really important to fix their main problem, which is the fact that they come off more as a racist, mean-spirited joke than an actual serious faction. Imagine an army of lizardmen getting cut up by a force with less than half their size. I mean, it'd be so cool. Their army would probably be very heavily reliant on numbers, but I think a more realistic thing to do, rather than making them a swarm faction, would be to have them use lots of cavalry and magic. Like fucking Beesbok slinging fat spells all over the place while they ride around on zebras. Like, that would be cool. Badass, even, I might dare to say. Anyway, in conclusion, I can fix him. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, comment the video, and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. See ya.
Tell you something that's sitting up on my mind. I can't give me a dime, I can't give me a dime. Oh man, I'm so mad that I can't get the bag. It's so sad. Everybody wanna take all of mine. Everybody wanna take all of mine. Hey, shorty tryna holler, she just want $1, and I don't even think that's enough. Should've robbed her for her love. Sick and I'm feeling kinda stuck. I know she'll want me when I'm coming up. Hey, then I'll
Z, блядь, это Z, это победа, это, блядь, мне повезло, своих, блядь, не бросаем, все правильно, все так, надо.